awesome.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I'm your host, Kev. And this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. This is a part 2 conversation, guys. Part 2 conversation. We're not going to bury the lead much. You know, last week we sat down and talked to a guy who it took 3 years to get him on this show or a variation of one of my shows. And it was such a blast. Had such a good time talking to him. And, you know, I just, there's no words to describe how fun it was. It was such a great conversation. And that's always the aim of these shows. It's not so much to have a great interview as it is to have a great conversation. We're going to bury the lead just a little bit more on this week's guest, this first week's return guest for part 2 of our conversation by giving off some of his credits. You may have seen this week's guest in things such as Inglesia, in General Hospital, in Law and Order LA, Madison County, in Roadside, a little bit more recently in, Two Broke Girls, Scorpion, Criminal Minds, Once Upon a Time, The Rock Opera, Ride Along 2, and so much more that's coming out this year. Without any more burying of the lead, Ace Marrero is back for part 2 of our conversation. An East Coast boy living it up in the West Coast. This is one of the few guests that I've had that can out-talk me. I'm a huge talker. You guys know, whenever I cut intros, they go on probably far longer than they need to go on. I like to kind of blow up the guests that we have. I like to just talk them up because each guest that comes on this show is very special to me because they're using, whatever little free time they have and spending it with me, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, or in this case, 2.5 hours, I think we went. Ace Marrero was such a fun person to talk to. I cannot wait to have him back on the show again so that we can just sit around and talk wrestling and just shoot the shit in general. I want to talk wrestling with him from a fandom standpoint, from an actor standpoint, because he used keywords when we talked about like psychology. That's huge in wrestling. That is huge. That's something that I learned about when I trained. So I just want to hear his thoughts on every aspect that he has to offer when it comes to wrestling. So I can't wait to have him on the show again for something like that. But make sure you check him out on all the social medias at NotoriAce. And I gotta say, Ace Marrero, and that's right, I'm going to keep calling him Ace Marrero by the full name. He's the opposite of Madonna. I'm going to use his whole name the whole time. In the whole multiverse, I feel like there is a version of ourselves since we live or he grew up in an area that's not too far from where I live. There is a version in the multiverse where we were like really good friends. That's how well this conversation was. That I'm going to put it out Front Street. Ace Marrero is my spirit animal. My Patronus for you Harry Potter fans. I cannot explain how awesome this conversation was and how much I enjoyed it. Every conversation I have is great in their own way, and this one proved to be top 5 easily, maybe even a top 3 conversation I've had in my entire life, let alone doing these podcasts. So make sure you check out Ace on all the social medias at NotoriAce. Check out all his projects that he'll talk about them on his Twitter is probably the best place. Twitter and Instagram, I think, is where he does the most work. And make sure you check out onceuponatimespoof.com for all things Owe It and Owe It spoof related. Now, without burying the lead, that is the lead of the podcast anymore, here we go.
Same thing with Daredevil. They took a story, hero versus hero, and made it work.
Yeah. Well, here, I mean, using Daredevil as an example, it's like, have you seen the most recent season?
Yes, I've watched it.
Okay. I mean, first of all, I think Charlie Cox does a great job as Daredevil. I very much like him in the first season. Yeah. And I thought this season he stepped it up big time, and I'm like, wow, this guy really I very much so appreciated his performances even more. Now, I say that because I think a large part of that is because John Bernthal it's like what we were speaking about with Robert Downey Jr. and all these other guys. This guy elevated that whole series to a different place. You know, that character, that scene. You know, I'm sorry for anybody listening that hasn't caught up.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. You know, that scene when Daredevil, when he rescues him, you know, the whole scene with the dog, and then they're at the graveyard talking his 8-minute monologue or whatever that is. Like, I'm watching this so into it. And then at some point, you know, they're cutting back and forth, and they cut to Daredevil. You know, he looks like a normal man in Punisher, and then you cut to this guy in a mask. And then after it's done, I'm like, holy shit! Like, this is a superhero movie. We just had like a guy give the equivalent of like a great Shakespeare monologue. You know what I mean? Like, he's just incredible. And then seeing him and as an actor, that, you know, that's why I think I love it so much, coming from a sports background. It's always a fight. Like, every scene, somebody has to win. So it's always, I want somebody competitive. And it was very athletic watching, and not even the physical stuff, but just their performances. And like, you know, John was bringing that out of Charlie. You know what I mean? Like, they were just, and that's what I'm saying. Like, Charlie took it even to another level, I think, in my opinion. And it's because he had a dance partner. You know, there's a reason his scenes, you know, with Punisher are more memorable than his scenes with Foggy. Let's face it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's nothing about the writing or the action. I mean, Foggy's just not a good actor. Period. And John Berthol's just amazing. I mean, and I've loved him since the first thing I saw him in, or at least that I remembered him from, because then I realized I'd seen him in everything else, was you know, Walking Dead. And I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna be huge. And then he's in Wolf of Wall Street, and then he's in all these other movies. And but I mean, I just think that, you know, that's what it's about, man. At the end of the day, we're still going to want to see good performances and good writing. And I think Winter Soldier, you know, like the whole Captain America part of those franchises, for whatever reason, they're all solid, man. And they do a great, I mean, that those other movies of his were incredible. And from what I'm hearing, like this one is going to be mind-blowing. And that's saying a lot, because I really love the second one a lot. I thought that was
Winter
incredible.
Soldier is probably Daredevil, I think, is the best thing Marvel's put out across any medium. But in films, The Winter Soldier is, I think, their best movie. Like, it floored me. Seeing it. It wasn't your typical superhero flick.
No, it wasn't. It felt like a film. It felt like a good film that you're like, oh, there's just some extraordinary characters in it.
Yeah,
you know?
with colorful costumes.
Exactly. But that was an incredible flick, man. And you know, funny enough, you know, bringing this back to OUAT, like, you know, Sebastian Stan, you know what I mean? It's like, I was reading an article. I remember talking to Aaron, you know, who was a big fan of him on Once Upon a Time as a Mad Hatter. And I'm like, well, I don't think he's coming back here anytime soon, you know. And it wasn't just because he was in that movie, but I read, you know, that he had signed like a 11-picture deal. And, you know, of course, all the fans knew why, because they, you know, knowing what happens with his character and whatnot, you know, and that I found out through this. But I was like, oh, okay, so this is where he's going, you know.
Yeah,
but
big plans for him in the Marvel universe. Like,
oh my God.
I hope that I know how the Civil War comic storyline ends. I'm hoping that they somehow surprise me and flip it in some other way. But I mean, at some point we're gonna see the Winter Soldier. We're gonna see Sebastian Stan holding that shield for whatever reason. I cannot.
Well, they
wait.
tease it in this. They tease it in this, even with what we've seen so far. And it's like, well, you know, obviously I don't know it as well as you do, but I put two and two together. I'm like, okay, they're definitely, you know, giving a taste of that, you know. So
it's, I mean, that character, even from the comic books, like the Winter Soldier, run me over so much so. Like, one of my planned tattoos to go opposite of my Captain America shield is the Russian red star on my arm.
Wow.
I'm going to have the skin shredding away from it so you can see the metal arm, so everyone knows that I'm not.
People are going to be like, you're a communist. What's going on?
No, I'm going to make sure that they know. Listen, comic book, like, look, I mean, Winter Soldier's household name now. You got to know.
That's funny.
So let's get into, I guess, the Once Upon a Time stuff with your career from your point of view, because now, not on this show, we haven't heard Aaron's story, but I've talked to Aaron, you know, interviewed her for I guess the original podcast that you guys now do. So I know her story, her side of it at least. Let's hear your side of, you know, the web series that's led to this epic rock opera.
Sure. Yeah. So obviously, she looks a lot like, Jennifer Morrison, and, some people were contacting her asking if she was in, this new show that was debuting that, they're promoting and posting images for. And we checked it out. And then at the time, I think it was somebody I knew who asked me if I was watching Once Upon a Time, because they knew like my Disney ties and all that stuff. And, and I guess everybody just assumes that, you play a Disney character, you're you should watch everything fairy tale related at least, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's what I assume.
Yeah, so I watched, or I was the one who told Aaron, like, hey, let's watch this show, let's check it out, and we started watching it, and then, obviously became fans of the show. Aaron much more than I have, obviously. But
you can tell that in the podcast every week.
Well, I mean, part of that is also too. This goes back to our pro wrestling days. I know the gimmick at this point. You know what I mean? Like, somebody's got to play that guy. So,
trust me. Just a sidebar about your podcast is I want to say the first half of the podcast from season 5A lacked Ace more so than this half. And you're definitely nothing against anyone else in the podcast. I know Aaron's in the background there, but you're definitely my favorite part. Like I appreciate the first half of the podcast season or whatever, when an episode that you appeared at, I was like, oh, good, it's an Ace episode. Things are gonna get crazy. So now it's like, and I appreciate that part of it because I love the comedy aspect of the podcast more so than the let's talk about this episode of Once, whether it was good or not. Like I want to hear
right for sure. Yeah, and I thank you so much. And Aaron has shared that sentiment from you as well. So no, she's very, very honest about that. But and I think it's she it's funny, we were talking about this the other day. We recorded this most recent one, and there were, I mean, I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but we had like 6 people, and I'm like, Aaron, we really need me. Like, there's like 7 people here. Like, it's gonna be a crowd. And she's like, no, Ace, you have to do it. I'm like, all right, fine. But I will say, like, I was joking with her, and they were giving me crap. And I'm like, hey, at least I've seen every episode this season so far, like this half of this season or whatever. And they're laughing, but it's funny listening to a lot of these other podcasts. It's like, it's taught me a lot, and I'll share some stuff with Aaron and that I'm kind of picking up from some of these people, and like, talking to her about, mentioning like, Stone Cold does this funny thing where he'll find something, and he did like a whole podcast with him wrestling a fly, and it was the funniest.
I remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
How hilarious was that? And I was like telling Aaron, I'm like, we got to do stuff like, fake commercials or like, there's stuff that we can do, and so I've learned a lot actually from listening to a lot of that stuff, but I do actually have a lot of fun recording them now, with, and not that I didn't before, but knowing that I was always nervous that like, I was going to piss off all the fans and this and that, but like, it seems like people have come to embrace that I'm just that element of of it. So
we, when Mike and I hosted the podcast, Mike especially, would be very critical of the show. And I actually, and this will probably, without saying anything, describe my feelings so far of this season. I told Mike, I was like, it's a good thing we don't host that podcast anymore. I was like, it's in the right hands for fans.
It's funny. I mean, it's funny because I felt like this season there's been some good episodes, but then it's like all over. Like, and it's funny. This most recent episode, I was a huge fan in the beginning of Hades. I'm like, oh, because I like his character, and I'm like, oh, he's funny, and he's like, he brings levity, and he kind of makes you remember that this is a silly show, you know. And then it's like, and now this one, I'm like, he's just acting every syllable. And I'm like, God, you're getting on my nerve. Like, don't just, you had a good thing going. Just, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, the show has a tendency to do that. And I'm like, I don't know what happens. They must, these showrunners get like a vibe or get something. They're like, oh yeah, this is working, and let's do more of that. And I'm like, oh no. But yeah.
What was the... And you guys may have talked about this on the podcast. I kind of forget. But it's from the first half of the season. Mike and I commented it right away. The Dark Swan's voice.
Oh yeah, I definitely yeah.
And acting in general, to be honest, like every time she was in Dark Swan mode, I was just like, oh my god, just
no. I told
anything
Aaron too.
else.
I'm like, why is this like? It's like she went to an acting class to like do hardly anything with facial expressions and I'm like, I just don't get it. You know, like she was a cool character. There was a reason people liked her so much because she's kind of a badass and she was like feisty, and it's like now it's just bland. You know.
That show for me, I had in the beginning. I have always said that it was Rumpel's show. He masterminded everything, and that's when the show to me. So I'm not going to put you guys on blast. To me, Kev, was when it was the most interesting. Like when it was about him finding his son. Ever since that aspect of the show left, I kind of like it's almost I'm at the point of where I watch it because I'm like 5 seasons in.
Right. You're committed. I'm
committed. I also listen to you guys talk about it, so I'm like, well, I need to kind of know what I'm listening to. So and it's I want to like the show, and that's why I watch it week in and week out. But like, I mean, I have a feeling, and you feel free to not comment, but I have a feeling season 6 is got to be when they wrap it up because
we've actually I think Erin's even said that on the podcast. She thinks the same thing, you know, that it's coming up. Yeah,
it's just and I said that before, like the first half of season 5A for the issues I had with it, like I liked it, like I liked season 5A. 5B I should be in love with because I love the Greek mythology, and so far I'm somewhat disappointed.
But they really didn't do much with Greek mythology. It's like, oh, okay, so we're an underworld. This is all this is kind of a cheap way of saying like, just remember this is all Greek themed. It's like, no, you had Hercules, like he left 2 episodes in or whatever it was, 3 episodes in. It's like, yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, if they next season turn around and do like a what's the newest Disney craze? I don't know. Like if they do something Star Wars or space related, I'm going to throw a table for sure.
I mean, I just want to see them finish strong because so before they were even renewed for season 6. Like I went and looked at their ratings and how each season started and ended, and I was like, all right, well, there's a theme here. So I'm pretty sure if they get renewed, season 6 is just, by the math I'm seeing, going to be their last. And I mean, that might be a good thing. Like that helped Lost. Like Lost got better once they had a definitive end until the very end, I guess. But like, give me I want them to finish strong. Like just kind of find a way to get back to like the basics of what your show was.
No, I absolutely agree. I think everybody wants, at the end of it, you want a good show, right? And I think, they obviously they have the burden of having a complicated palette to choose from, but that does, but that also ends up being the sort of trap they fall into. They just throw everything at the wall to see what sticks, and it's like, well, just come back to the basics. You know what I mean? Come back to the basics.
This is the one thing that will never get answered, that I'll forever be upset about the show, is the whole whale thing and the Frankenstein thing. Like they made it a point in that one season to comment, hey, Frankenstein's not in this book. Like, so they were setting up something bigger where other worlds that weren't fairy tales were coming into Storybrooke. And they dropped it after that episode. Like, Henry makes a comment about it. And I've clung to that, literally. It's something so stupid that I've clung to. And it's maybe one of the reasons subconsciously I don't like the show anymore.
That's a good Q&A question. I'm wondering if anybody's ever brought that up.
I think that would have kept my interest more so than doing Frozen. Like the Frozen stuff wasn't terrible, but like explain that story of like why Frankenstein and whatever other people you were planning on bringing in from outside of fairy tales. Like explain that story, because that would have been far more interesting than Frozen.
Yeah. Well, didn't they do? Do you remember this? I want to say it was 2 seasons ago, maybe, where they did like promos and they had like How to Get Away with Murder or somebody like that. Like they were doing these crossover promos. Do you remember this?
I don't remember the crossover promos now.
Yeah, they were just like, it was almost like, I'd have to ask Erin. She would know exactly, but it kind of came out of nowhere. And you're like, it was other ABC shows where you're like, what is going on? Like, okay, they're just trying to be clever, but I'm like, that's probably the closest they've come to, like you said, other worlds and stuff combining. But
I think it would have been great. Like, and you have literally everything Disney owns to bring in anything that's not a fairy tale into your world. You have everything on ABC. I guess it feels like a lost opportunity / a story point that will never be answered.
I know, and who knows? Maybe they're too nervous about making it a lost comparison where people are just like, I don't know, but
they've left that story behind for so long now, where like it's I can see why they're not going to pick it up. It should have been picked up 3 seasons ago, I guess. At this point, maybe 2 seasons ago. Anyway, I cut you off from your.
No worries. But yeah, you're right. That is a very specific turn to make at this point, this many seasons in, if they were to go that route. Like, people were like, oh my God, wow, that's kind of, it's almost like the waking up and it was all a dream. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, no.
Real quick to sidetrack just a little bit more. Mike and I were actually talking about this past week's episode of Once this morning, and sharing our thoughts on it. And he commented on that he wants it to end with them waking up in purgatory sitting in a church. And I said I'm in for that. Like, if they ended it like that, I would give them all the props in the world. Like,
wait, end this season?
No, end the series. End the series just like you ended Lost. Like, it makes no sense, but like, it feels like you'd be trolling the fans the whole time, and I respect that. Like, I was a Community fan, and like, to me, that's just a massive joke that no one else would like. But Community set up a Beetlejuice joke. It took 3 seasons to tell, where someone said Beetlejuice in one episode in season 1, and then another in season 2, and then another in season 3, and then Beetlejuice walks in the background of the scene. That to me is pure genius. And maybe ending your series of Once Upon a Time the way you ended Lost is not genius, but there's something so stupid about it that I like. Like, if you were to really, it's giving the middle finger to the fans, and that I appreciate. Like, that's my attitude era of wrestling. Like, I appreciate that.
That's funny. I know Erin was saying, I think it might have even been this week, where she was like, if this ends and it's like it was all a dream or something like that, she's like, I'm going to be so pissed off. Like, it's just the cheapest way to, go with it or whatever. But, I'm curious to see how that show all wraps up for sure.
I mean, I just assume it's everyone finds their happy ending. I mean, I just assume.
Right.
But, who knows? I keep derailing. My biggest problem with the show is when they have a villain who flip-flops literally all the time from good to bad, good to bad, good to bad. Like, just be one. Just be good or be bad. Like, Regina, for the longest time early on in the season, was like, I want her to, like, really stick to this path of goodness.
Yeah.
And like, it was like that for her little storyline, like her becoming not the evil queen. And they, at one point, they flipped her back and forth, and it was incredibly annoying. And obviously it finally stuck, but like, that's what they're doing with Rumpel. And it all goes back to where, for me, the story was at its strongest when it was about not necessarily Emma and the Charmings. It was about Rumpel finding his son.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, because you had clear villains. And I used to say the same thing. Like, whenever we got hints of Regina going back to being evil, I'm like, yes, finally, like, stop. Like, why do we have 90 other characters that are good? Like, give us something that's not a guest star or a season guest star that we know is going to die at the end or whatever. It's like, the biggest thing you need in any type of, whether it's a show or movie, is conflict. And it's like, you have conflict built in. You have the evil queen. You have Rumpelstiltskin. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to go very far. Like, That's kind of where it's gotten weakened quite a bit.
They just need to pick a villain, and you absolutely introduce your Hades, your villain of the year or whatever. But like, have some sort of steady villain, I guess, is what I'm looking for, or steady role. Like, just pick a side is my issue. I think that's one of my issues. One of my many issues with the show.
We want a heel. We want a strong heel.
Yes.
Not the Rock. The version of a heel. You know.
I think I relate to the bad guy. Like, I've always really, going back to the wrestling days, like I've always, like, Shawn Michaels as a heel, I loved, and that's might be because I'm from Philly and we tend to like the heel. We cheer the heels here.
Yeah, of course.
So like I've always liked the bad guys, and sometimes want to see their redemption. Like for Gina, I wanted to see redemption for. Which Mike and I think I've heard you guys point out, like, it's hard to do that. Even, she's a good guy now, but remember that time she killed an entire village?
Exactly.
And like, I have a hard time arguing that. Like, okay, I guess you're right, but she's team good now.
I know. Well, it's like, it's kind of, going back to wrestling. It's funny. It's like, all right. So did you see Mania?
I watched bits and pieces of it.
Bits and pieces. So did you see the Rock's bit?
No.
Okay. Well, if you get a chance, he comes out and he's having this little angle with that character I was telling you, Bray Wyatt, who's like one of the biggest heels they have right now, but also mega, like, everybody's like, this guy's like a superstar to make, and he's super young. Great on the mic and everything, great gimmick. Probably one of the strongest, like, gimmicks since, like, The Undertaker. Huge opportunity. Well, a big thing that's been going around is that The Rock went out there, cut his promo, and it's 3-on-1. There's The Rock and these three guys, and you're like, okay, they're all much bigger than him. There's three of them. Like, he even says at one point, this is not going to end well for me. There's three of you, one for me. Well, this guy gets on a mic, cuts his masterful promo, and then The Rock does The Rock, and it's like mimicking him, and of course the audience loses it because anything The Rock says they're going to lose. Yeah. And they just undid years of this guy's gimmick in that one moment. It's like, and I mean, Stone Cold's talking about it this week. A lot of other wrestlers, I was listening to a lot of people were saying, like, they feel for this guy because they just undid so much of what he had going for him, what he could have done, because you put him against somebody like that, where it should have been like The Rock comes out, says something, these guys beat the hell out of him. John Cena music comes out, he saves the day, and then, you know what I mean? The Rock does a rock bottom, and you're out of there again. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's the same thing. It's like you have Regina, who's supposed to be the most brutal, like the evil character, the ultimate villain. Mm-hmm. And then the minute you introduce another villain and you see her team up with the good guys against them, you've undone everything. And that's why I think they've had a hard time trying to tease that she's going bad, because you're like, well, she's already done this. And now we also know that she's a human with Henry and all these things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, had she turned around and said something like, I don't even care about the kid, take him. You know what I mean? Then it's like, oh, my God, that would have been like incredible. You know what I mean? And then you can build seasons off of that, and then maybe end the series with like her becoming a little warmer, and you know what I mean, and then have a resolve. But no, it's like, well, now she's a good person who dresses in black, and we know it can kill people at times, So it's unfortunately that's where it's gone.
But she's still one of the highlights of the show. Like,
oh, absolutely. She's just incredible. She's an incredible actress, and she plays that part so well. It's not her, it's the writing. There's nothing that she can do about that.
As much, like, a lot of my complaints actually stem around probably the two best people on the show, her and Robert Carlyle.
Robert Carlyle, yeah.
Like, both are just so incredibly genius on that show. And all my complaints stem from them, but you're right. It's not them. It's the writing around them.
It really is, yeah. I mean, it's just that and we know. I mean, it's like even a general audience who are not in quote unquote the business, so to speak. You don't need to know, like, who the stronger actors are on that show. So you just want that. You want more from them. You know what I mean? And for them as characters. So I think everybody's on board for that.
All right, so I don't know where we left off in the Owen world. I think
you were
literally
asking me about,
she looks like
my
Jennifer Morrison.
Yeah, and so I kind of encouraged her to watch a couple episodes, and then at some point, we were joking, and she was like, we should shoot something. I was like, you should shoot a sketch, you as her, and then we'll get I forgot what I even recommended, but it's not even what ended up happening. But then she came up with the idea for the pilot and wrote it, and she was like, yeah, I already reached out to these people and this and that, and we pulled together our resources as we usually do, because Aaron's very much like, I have an idea, let's shoot this tomorrow, and it's like, oh my god, where I'm much more logical, like realistic, like, oh, okay, we're gonna need to time to set this up. She's just like, no, let's just do it, which has been great. It's taught me a lot, and we both learned from each other in that regard. But so we shot that first episode, and of course, like I was talking about what I kind of mentioned earlier, just was reaching out. I was like, well, at least I'll just try to reach out to everybody I know and say, hey, we're gonna shoot this, and then I'll let you know when it's done, and then reach out to them and follow up when it's all edited. And that's kind of what we did. And I think we obviously there's nobody, and I feel I'm not overstepping any boundaries by saying this, but there's nobody that really does what we do for Once Upon a Time. I've seen little sketches or something, but in regards to how we do it, you know what I mean? Just put a little bit more filmmaking into it. So I knew we kind of could be that, that sort of, I don't know, representation, that fan representation for an outside influence, let's say. And Erin, I don't know, I credit so much to her. She sees so much, and she's obviously a huge fan of the show. She watches the episodes multiple times each. And so, I think there's a reason why her lyrics and her songs and just, the clever, throwbacks that she has to past seasons, or lines, or storylines, or even as early as our past episodes before the rock opera, the inside jokes, I always think those were written very, I think any big Once Upon a Time fan that knows, the show, they can watch this and pick up on so much, because she does a great job of really incorporating all these elements, and then on the rock opera, taking it, to a different place as far as just really having good, good support through the writing. But that was kind of it, she was like, let's involve, you'll play Aladdin, because of course that was what I did. And then at that time, of course, Hook was introduced and was a big, everybody in that fandom was swooning over Hook. And that's why she had me do the bit where I come out as Hook as a joke. And,
that is my favorite thing. And I haven't seen the rock opera yet, but you
haven't seen the rock opera yet?
No, I haven't seen the rock opera yet.
Oh my god! Why? What are we waiting for?
Well, and it's, you guys are coming to Jersey, and it's on a day, Mike and I talked about it, and we both wanted to go, but it's literally the day after. We both have a million things to do, and we can't make it. So I asked Aaron, I was like, do you have any information on the New York one? And so I'm waiting for hopefully a New York show or a Philly show.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I do. I want to. We're still going to maybe try to come out to the Jersey one,
okay.
But I don't. I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
so you haven't seen the rock opera, just the episodes?
Yeah, so just the episodes, and that is my favorite thing that was done was you. As Aladdin, imitating the other characters, specifically Hook, was genius. And,
that's funny.
And that is that's what I want back. I want you as an Aladdin kind of being the goofball.
That's funny, and I appreciate you saying that. I mean, honestly, doing all of this, and especially the rock opera, has been, so much fun for me. Yeah. I love comedy. That's always always my dream of what I would prefer to do, which is why I like a show like I said, like House of Lies. I think, it's a drama, but it's also very funny. It's a dramedy, and there's a lot of elements to it. But in Hollywood, you tend to get typecast, and it's like, okay, there's a certain look I have, so this is what I'm going to get shoved into. So the comedy stuff isn't necessarily the stuff I get to do and act like a goofball as much as I want. So this has been a real treat for me, and the rock opera especially has been so much fun because there's kind of no boundaries for me as Hook in this. You know what I mean? I could be as dirty or as silly or whatever as I want, but yet have a kind of Joey from Friends quality about you, where you don't realize, I don't realize it. It's just like, well, this is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so silly. But it's funny you mentioned that particular element of pretending to be all these other characters because, and I'm not really spoiling anything for you because we cut it out anyway. But in the rock opera, the intent was. We actually had another Hook. We had another guy, Leo Camacho, who's a big cosplayer as Hook, and he looks a lot like what's his name? Colin O'Donoghue. Yeah, looks a lot like him as Hook. It's actually scary. Well, when we were having to schedule and we had to switch around some things, he became unavailable. Then we found another guy, and the whole gag was I'm in the whole movie as Hook, and then at some point, Hook, in a scene. Hook comes in, the real Hook.
Oh my God.
And they're like, he's like, what, what's going on? And then everybody's looking at me, and then somebody's like, Aladdin, and then it's like the whole gag just continues. You know what I mean?
Oh
and
my God.
That
would have floored me.
And it was going to be a funny bit, and we filmed it, but it just didn't work.
Oh, really?
And the guy we found last minute, and he's a great actor. But he didn't look at the whole argument simply boiled down to Aaron was like, I can't do this because you still look and act way more like, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. If it was the original guy, would have looked. I mean, some people would have been like, oh my God, is that Colin? You know what I mean? That's how much he looks like him. I don't know what kind of an actor he is because he's a YouTube personality, but that's a whole different story. But that was kind of what we were going for. But it just, but when we were watching the footage and stuff, like even our editor was like, I'm a little confused. Like, what Ace isn't real? Like this doesn't make sense, So we ended up cutting it, and so it's still where I am, just Hook, and it's kind of unexplained as why. But it's come up in a couple Q&As, like people were asking it, sort of the same thing, and we kind of shared this story, but. I guess I don't know. We'll see if anything brews in the future for episodes or another rock opera. Maybe we'll address that.
Well, I would imagine it also makes sense that the potential fact that there's an audience watching the rock opera that may not know anything about the web series that came before.
Exactly.
Yeah. If it's not going to work, like if you guys didn't see it and it wasn't working. Like it totally makes sense to be like, well, let's not have that callback if it doesn't work. Like
for sure, and it's a callback that is like, I mean, first of all, we spoof a very specific niche show, and then, it's a joke within the spoof of that. So it's like, the audience that has seen that or will get it, you're right, is very slim to begin with. But
like I said, you would have had me. I would have, because I remember at some point. I don't know if I ever sent Aaron an email, but I was like, can you just bring him back as fucking like I was thinking, I was like, I need to send this to her.
I'll tell you what, Kev, I'd be the first person. It's funny. I anytime Aaron's like, oh, let's go do this, I'm like, fudge. Like when we did the Hook at the Gap sketch,
that was great.
I was like, God, I hate getting dressed up because I sweat my nuts off. It's so hot. It's all leather. All the makeup I have to put on gets in my eyes, and it's like, woe is me. Females do this every day, but I'm not used to it, and it's like, so believe me, I'd be the first one to be like, oh God, Aladdin would be so much easier. But I do have a lot of fun with it, and of course, every time we're at a convention, it's like, whenever Aaron's there with me, that's a big hit. But then they see, me too, and they love that. So that's always a lot of fun. People love that character. But it is a funny thing that we've definitely toyed about, and who knows, maybe something in the future. But I will say, like, it was a nice compliment. There was one of the associate producers on the show who came to the premiere in Hollywood on actual Once Upon a Time, and we were afterwards, we're all at a bar, grabbing drinks and just kind of relaxing and celebrating the moment. And, he comes up and I was just thanking him for coming out. And he was like, wait, you're the guy that played Hook. Cause I was like completely clean shaven. And
Yeah.
He's like, dude, you do a great, you were like, we were talking about, you do a great Captain Hook. And I was like, thank you. Like, I mean, it was such a nice compliment. And again, I don't really think much of it because it's, for me, I'm always just like I have the joke with Aaron is always like, Aaron, I'm not your puppet. You can't just dress me up and, parade me around as you want. And so that's usually how I approach this. I'm like, when we were filming the movie, like there's so many times where like, I mean, I know my stuff. I never show up like unprepared, but there were a couple of times where I was just like, I was forgetting what I was saying and they would just joke that I didn't know because I just showed up and did it or whatever. But no, I have a lot of fun doing it and I just do it because it is fun. I don't really think much about it. So it's nice to just get some sort of feedback from it that people are enjoying it at least.
Yeah, it's I've enjoyed everything that I've seen that you guys do. And like I've listened to the music. Like I'm lucky enough to have at least because I guess we shared it for Patreon users for you guys. Patreon.com/dorkandame, I believe, is the plug there. If not, just go to the support link on your website, what's behind timespoof.com. And so I posted the the soundtrack for certain Patreon users there. So I've listened to the soundtracks numerous times.
Well, yeah, you have because we heard your Batman version. I'm all over the place like NotoriAce. I was dying.
Oh my god! So, I used to do parodies all the time I've been doing podcasts for 10 years. So, and a lot of my early podcasts took a cue from from just radio, from like Howard Stern or Opie and Anthony or, guys like that.
To start medication.
And
which are all great, by the way. I mean, obviously, all
and
solid
like
shows.
I don't know if you probably never heard Kid Chris. Kid Chris was a Philly guy, but Kid Chris was like my inspiration for radio more so than any of the other guys. And parodies play a huge role in that world, or at least it used to 10 years ago. And so I always enjoy doing it. I can't sing, like I'm tone deaf. I know it. And Mike, he hates everything I do because he's like, it's not good. But I'm like, listen to the lyrics. Like that's the funny part. And this is the first parody I've done in 10 years where like I listened to it after I put it together. I'm like, all right, this is my level of acceptance. Like it's exactly what I want. It's supposed to be terrible, whatever. And then when I published the podcast and listened to it one more time, I'm like, what the hell did I like? It's legitimately the first thing I've ever done that I'm like, I think I'm embarrassed by this. Like I think I did a mistake.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
It was fun to do. Like after kind of like going back and forth on Twitter with like you, Aaron, and me. I now look at it. I'm like, all right, it's back to like the status quo of Kev doing a parody.
Oh, it's funny. Like I kind of when she first said that, and sometimes Aaron will say stuff, and I'm like, Aaron, that's not at all what he said. But like, okay, she's got a million things going on. But she's like, oh, Kevin just told me he did a music video to Evil as Batman. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait. So that was my expectation when she said that. I was like, wait, where's the music video, Aaron? She's like, oh, I don't know. I don't think he did a music video. I'm like, you told me he did a music video. She's like, no, I didn't say that. I'm like, okay, forget it. I'm not even going to, I know what this was from. But I kind of want to, I was hoping to see you in like, a Batman outfit. Like,
So the character stems from like I've only done, I think I've only released maybe 2-3 episodes of the web series. It stems from the fact like I have it's the Batlog, and I literally dress up as the Batman, but it's set in a version my DC universe where Batman's a little out of shape, for lack of a better term, unemployed. Like Superman stopped all the crime in Gotham, so now Batman has nothing to do. And so he's to the point where he sold his bat outfit for money to make rent or whatever. And so I literally have like a $10 mask and paint my beard black with mascara and put eye black around my eyes to when I do the video recording, and then just wear like a Batman hoodie. Like legitimately, it's just cosplaying as Batman in a shitty version of Batman, and that's how I take that role on, and it's I have a lot of fun with it. It's something that I want to do more of, and I'm sitting down today even saying maybe I take the time, watch the Evil music video, and do a video of it.
Dude, it would be hilarious. I mean, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, it in so many ways, it would kind of be easy to parody that because you could get a simple setup and just you doing this or like when she's on the chair. I mean, there's so many funny things that you could do. That would be really funny. I wrote the lyrics and I sent it to my buddy just to look over because he sung some of the parts, and after like seeing the tweets on Twitter or whatnot, I was like, the one line that I wrote that I guess is just too geeky that no one put in is like I wrote something about it's when I do the rap, the parody of a parody, and I say something about it's more meta than the Flash. Like that was the line I was proudest of that whole thing because it's such an in joke because I'm a huge Flash fan on the CW, and that was the line I was most proud of. But yeah, it was a lot of fun recording that. And, that's really cool.
And I've been toying with the idea of possibly doing a music video to it. Toying is a very I might do it. It's a matter of when I have time.
Right. That would be hilarious. Oh my god.
And like I've now been like spending spending like the last day or two like going over rap lyrics as the Batman in my head. I'm like, there's no way I can do this. So I may be doing another rap as Batman. As awful as it is, I may be doing it. All right,
good.
so we've been at this for 2 hours. I think I can let you go. I'm sure you're getting tired at this point, and I have to put a few more touches on your podcast from this week so I can get it up for Tipsy Tuesday. So I have work ahead of me. But thank you, Ace, for doing this. It was a lot of fun.
Cool, man. No problem. Thank you for having me on. And I really appreciated shooting the breeze with you. And we'll have to come on and do it again, especially talk some wrestling at some point too.
It's been 3 years. Like literally, you and I talked about doing this interview probably about 3 years ago.
Wow.
So I'm glad that we finally sat down and did it. And absolutely, like I would love to have you on again. What I hope for with this podcast is like the first one that I do with everyone is all about like learning who you are and why you're awesome. And the next one is us just sitting around talking about stupid, nonsensical stuff like we went on many tangents about today.
Yeah. Hey, well, that's how I appreciate that. I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast and he's like, oh, we have this person on. And it's like, they never talk about anything that person does because they just go on tangents. And I'm like, but it's much more entertaining to me. And I'm totally in for the ride,
This podcast took inspiration from Fat Man on Batman with Kevin Smith, where it was literally just sitting down and talking to people about that show about Batman, this show about their craft, whatever that is. And it has, because I'm not good at keeping things on topic, it's usually just a shit show of talking about whatever.
Hey man,
but I
always down to be a dance partner for anything like that.
So real quick before we go, throw out some plugs for whatever you got going on, social media and whatnot. And I would say June dates are safe for your at Rock Opera stuff.
I'm terrible because I don't know the exact dates for June, what they are. But I will. But I know. Aaron's been brewing and putting all that together. So
I think June 1st, June 5th. Early June is your Jersey show.
I know it's early June. Yeah, because I'm still trying to figure out how. We've got a crazy I'm going in. Well, there's just a lot of travel for May back to East and then as well for the Rock Opera. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to swing all this. But anyway, so obviously we have the Rock Opera, tour that we're continuing to add seasons for. You can find tickets for, all the upcoming screenings at indietix.net. Also, the movie is up for rental if people want to check it out at cinecosmos.net. What else? What's been brewing for me? well, when this airs, I'll probably be deep into my prep for to lead this feature called Interpreters that I was cast in, and I'll be shooting that for a month in Northern California, and then for about another week in other various parts of LA desert area, I should say. So I play the lead in that, which it's a really cool film.
Is it? I guess it's still got to be exciting when you book big things like that.
Oh yeah. No, I absolutely. Like, I mean, again, like that kind of goes under the heading of what we were talking about earlier. It's like, I sometimes think about that. I'm like, does Johnny Depp get excited when he has a movie coming out, or does his family like I never want to get tired, or I never want my family to be like, oh, we won't catch it opening day. I mean, whatever. It's just another movie. We'll catch the next one. It's like, I don't know. I just that excites me so much. And I know at some point it does change and you get excited about other things, I assume, but I don't know. I mean, for me, it always is very much. I'm not at a point, in my career or I mean, even if you want to say as financially or anything, where I can't get excited about this. It always is exciting because it means a lot of things in many ways still. So, especially this particular one, this is a group of people that I worked with and a director specifically that I've known for almost as long as I've been here. And this part was actually supposed to be another one of our mutual friends who's one of their producing partners and helped develop this movie and find the money for it and everything. And through circumstances, this guy's in Canada and his visa expired and there's just issues. He couldn't come and they were scrambling. They're like, what do we need to find somebody? And they were looking at other actors. And then, like I mentioned earlier, my one friend, it's kind of one of those things, out of sight, out of mind sometimes, right? Like he was like, what about Ace? Ace would be incredible. And then everybody was like, oh my God, yeah. And they, they reached out to me and I read the script. And, oddly enough, man, this is one of those scripts like I mentioned before, the work is generally, for me, the work part of this is always like, the work is the prep. The work is going to the gym to stay in shape. The work is, going to classes. The work is, having headshots printed or going, prepping auditions, going to the auditions, all the work that goes involved, that's involved with that. Being, getting the job and being on set, that's the play. And honestly, like sometimes the most exciting part is the audition and getting word that you get the part. A lot of actors will say that because of so much that goes into it. So you got to, keep that fresh and exciting for when you're filming. But so, that's so much of the work we do, and I've had a busy, in regards to work, I've been working a lot the last couple of weeks, thankfully, because I've been busy with auditions and I have rep in the South who sends me stuff. So I have to put stuff on tape and that's a whole different beast because I lose 3 hours of time and all this other jazz. But, it was one of those things where I'd been working really hard the last couple weeks and I was up for a couple of cool parts that I kind of missed out on because I was in Seattle for the Rock Opera too during the same weekend. And then I booked another movie that I had taped. And then this was as simple as the director calling me and saying, hey, I want to see if you'd be interested in this. And I'm very upfront. I'm not somebody to just do anything. Like I don't believe in that. Like, as much as I like to be involved with stuff and I like working, I'm just not one of those actors that like can be in, like I have friends who are in any horror film that'll come their way. And it's like, I love that genre and I'm very much tied to it, but I have a higher, I don't know. I have a different, I don't want to say higher. I have a different, what's the word? I don't know. I hate to put it this way, but I think you'll understand. I have a higher level of quality I want to achieve. You know what I mean? And that's not to knock anything. It's more just like, these lower budgeted stuff, sometimes they don't end up doing well or end up, being executed well. And it's just like, I don't want to just be involved to anything for the sake of being involved. So, I was very upfront with him. I was like, man, I like you guys and I believe so much in you as a filmmaker. I'm like, but I need to just read the script. I just need to see if it's something that I really like. And because I don't believe in wasting your time or my own time, you know what I mean? Over a job. I would never do that to anybody, because I want people that are there as much as as I want them there, and I want to be that person for other people. So I read the script, and I fell in love with the script, and I was up till like 3 a.m. talking to him that night after I read the script, and we agreed to do it. So it was just a nice little victory, that it was like I didn't even have to audition for this. It was all the work that I'd done prior that got me there, if that makes sense. He'd seen my work. We've worked together prior before, and then the guy that I said was championing me from the beginning, had seen that I'd been booking stuff nonstop. And it's just like, it's just good to know as actors, we want that. Like, believe me, no actor likes auditioning. Like we say we do because we get good at it and we realize the psychology that goes into it. But it's still like any actor you'll see inside the actor studio, everyone will, the one thing they'll always say is, oh, we hate auditioning. Yeah, it's like, I yearn for the day where maybe I don't have to audition, but I'm not anywhere near that. So this was a nice victory, even in that sense, that it was just like, it was somebody that just liked my work and believed in me enough and trusted, because this is this guy's first big film like this. And for I take so much pride and I'm so humbled that he wants me to lead it for him, and that's I don't know. I goes back to being playing sports. Like, it's a team effort for me, it really is. It's a collaborative art, so I love that element. I think that's why I like producing, and I one day want to direct, and I like every aspect of this, because it does. Everybody speaks a different language, and you have to be the person to sort of channel all that and see through what the end product needs to be achieved. And as an actor, you're a big obvious component of that, especially if you're leading the film. And I don't know, I take a lot of pride in being, that number one on the call sheet, and it's like, I look at it as like, you're a lead actor, you have to lead the film. You have to lead not only just the film, but, the crew, the cast. Set an example. Like, I've been on sets before where, it's great. It's a great community, a great vibe. And the actors are awesome. The leads are incredible because they set that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then I've been on other shows where they're just like doing their job. And it's like, it just feels like, okay, people are here. Like, okay, get in, get out. And it's like, again, I don't want to be that person. I want to be inspired by, and I want to inspire people, as I work, and it's going to be an exciting experience. I'm actually going in. We're going into a gun range tomorrow for weapons and safety training, and I'm going to be firing some weapons. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Cool. That reminds me of a story that I've heard about, like John Goodman, who is he did a film. He did Red State with Kevin Smith.
Yeah, and
Kevin Smith talked about having him on set, and like when they were getting ready to block the shot or whatever, and Goodman didn't have to be out there. They could have whoever could have stood there and taken his place, and John Goodman was like, "No, I'll sit out here. I mean, that's part of my job or whatever."
Right.
Like, hearing stories like that about like actors I grew up watching as a kid is great to hear. Versus other stories I've heard about, like, I've heard not so much great things about Bruce Willis, who is an actor that I absolutely loved as a kid. So it's good to hear the positive ones and not like going back to the whole fear of meeting my hero in the wrestling world. Like, is he going to be an asshole? Like, it's good to know that like John Goodman or any guys that take their job seriously are just like good people.
Yeah, that's all you want, man. Like, I'll tell you what, I did a couple episodes on Body of Proof ABC. That was Dana Delaney leading that show, and Jerry, I'm blanking on her name. Oh, and oh my God, who did you ever watch American Horror Story?
No, I have not.
Oh God, but hold on, I'm gonna have to pull this up. John C.
John C. Reilly?
No, not John C. Reilly. Hold on. Oh, I know who it is. If I look up Zodiac, he's in Zodiac. I mean, he's in everything. You know who he is. Dating back to Fargo. John Carroll Lynch.
Okay.
John C.
Yeah.
So, he was on that show, and they were incredible. Everybody on the cast was great. They all got along great. It was such a fun experience. Like, and you just got it, And then fast forward, last year I did I did an episode of Scorpion on CBS, and I'm looking through my scenes, when they send it over, and then I'm looking at who plays that on the show on IMDb, and I see Robert Patrick, and I'm like, oh, T2000, are you kidding me? Like, I'm like, no way, I'm in the scene with him.
Yeah.
And I started to lose it because I'm like, first of all, I'm a huge fan since I was a kid. I mean, that guy's in everything, but also too, I'm like, he looks like he would be a prick, right? Like he looks like he would be like just a mean dude to work with. I'm like, oh no. I get on set, man. That dude was the coolest guy. And I've since have met and worked with a lot of people who work or know him, and they all say the same thing. He is incredible. Now, he was not even the lead on the show. He was like number 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. But it was him, you could tell. And the rest of the cast is great too. But like, it was a veteran like him that helped set that tone for everything. You know what I mean? Like he would show up. He's like, hey, what's your name, man? Come over here. Come eat with us. Come have lunch with us. And just, he was a great guy, man. He turned me on to Turkish coffee. I had no idea what that was before. He explained what it all was. I mean, just a great, great guy. Then I did Criminal Minds, and Joe Mantegna, was the lead on that show. The same. They're like cut from the same cloth. And now Joe Mantegna's like he's not an East Coast guy. He's from Chicago, but he feels like an East Coast guy. Mm-hmm. So, you're just like this Italian guy, you know what I mean? But he was the same way, welcoming everybody, talking, and and it's just like, yeah, man, there's a reason why these people and it doesn't take much, man. You just need to be a good person. Like I learned this with my dad, it was like the one thing. And this is why, I don't expect everybody's going to like everything I do, every performance, every movie. I mean, I don't like everything out there, so I'm not going to be so dumb as to expect that everybody likes everything I do. I mean, we're all individuals and have opinions, and that's fine. I'm human. Like, certain things may not sound good or feel good, but at the same time, I respect that people have that opinion. And more than anything, I learned, like I said, through the past of my dad, it's like, one thing I mean, people can return the movie. They can get their money back. They can, hell, you can eat all your food at some restaurants and then still get your money back, and they'll give you a gift certificate on top of it. But the one thing they can't pay you is the hour you were sitting at that restaurant, or in our case, the 2 hours you were watching the movie. You know what I mean? Like, that's irreplaceable. And so I will never take that for granted. And I always appreciate what anybody will have to say, and I'll engage anybody that tries to engage me, that I realize, well, even if they're sharing negative things, because I'm like, hey, man, I'm thankful there was something in there that you thought you would like. I appreciate that alone. And if it's not this one, I'm going to stick around and I'll find something that you like eventually. You know what I mean? And you'll see something. And that's just it. And it's like, I just believe like respect and time. Like, I mean, you just have to, those are free things, man. And I feel like there's so many pricks out there and that don't get that. And at the end of the day, man, you just be a good person, and I think that everyone wins, when they're good people, and that's basically all it boils down to.
No, I agree, and that goes across all walks of life. Just be a good person.
Exactly.
And it's and this is something that I probably have learned, because I was probably a prick in my early 20s and a teenager, but as you get older, especially, life is short. Like, why be so negative about it?
I still have you?
Yep.
Oh, okay. You were just ending emphatically on that. Why be so negative about it? Gotcha.
Yes.
I thought you cut out, but no, I 100% agree. It really is, and it's very short, man. It's very short, and just enjoy it and let other people enjoy you in it, and that's it.
All right. So back to your plugs.
I'm trying to keep in mind the when this will air. So, the rock opera, that movie I'm going to be filming. By the time this airs, I'm going to commit, because this will help me stick to it. I used to have a website that I managed, and then I stupidly didn't renew the name in time. And when I went to do it, some Japanese medical BS company now owns it, because they probably saw I had 5 visitors and they thought it's valuable. So I need to redo my website and get that up. So I will have up, by the time this airs, let's call it, I've been debating, but I think I'm going to go with acemarrero.tv. I mean, it's the only, I don't like .net, so hopefully that's still available. Let's just say you can visit acemerald.tv. That'll have, links to, my reel and some photos, and obviously on all social media platforms. I try to keep it consistent to be easy, at NotoriAce. I'm super available and accessible if anybody ever has questions or even just wants to say they hated something I did. I'm around. You can find me. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on.
It's been great. I love working with Team West Coast over there in the capacity that I work with you guys. It's just fun seeing you guys on social media and everything that you guys are doing, and how everything from a simple web series pilot episode that you tweeted out to everybody has like paid off in spades, across the board.
Well, thank you. And again, like I said earlier, I wasn't just saying it. You've been a big part of that, so thank you very much for all your involvement and coaching through it all, because I know there's a lot of new things that we weren't doing or aware of. So no, man, it's been a lot of fun to do and to have your support and help with all of it has been huge.
Thank you for that. It's my little way of playing in that world that I'm trying to get into. So
don't try,
cool.
man. Don't try.
I got, and that's okay. Another sidetrack. Mike and I found a script for a web series that we wrote 4 years ago, easy. And I started reading it, and I said, we wrote this? Like, this is good. Like, why aren't we doing this? And like, it all comes down to like, well, we want to do it right, so let's get the money for it and then do it.
Well, there you go. I totally understand that. I will say, like I mentioned earlier with Erin, it's funny, working with her so much has taught me a lot. She's very ambitious. She's heart driven. And she'll just, there's a saying, leap and the net will appear. And as much stress as that can bring on, Erin kind of lives that, and I don't even think it's necessarily, she's like, oh, I'm just going to do it. That's just how she's programmed. She doesn't realize it. But along those lines of, just because you said this, and I'm not saying that this is where you guys are coming from, but I'm just going to make a point, and I think, it speaks a lot, but or it can speak to a lot of us. Like I told you, I was producing, and producing, I realized, was what I thought I wanted to do, and what I realized is, like, I want to direct at some point, because I just like that whole collaboration, being that person to sort of, it's like being the team captain, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Wolfie, in or out? Come on, Papa. And then so now I'm at the point, having produced a couple of things and been on a lot of sets as an actor, where I'm like, I want to do it right. I don't, I don't want to. Essentially, it's like it's got me to a point where I've been afraid to even do it, because my biggest concern is, like, I don't want it to be crap. I don't want it to be worse than anything I've done in the past as a producer. I want to grow, and I want it to be better. But at the same time, that's kind of also paralyzed me in some ways, where I'm like, oh, because now I'm just, timing's got to be right, or this has got to be right, or that's got to be right, or this got to be right. And, I would not have done probably any of the things that Erin's done from, the first sketch of this to Bates to the rock opera. I probably wouldn't have done any of that if that was me, because I probably would have been too nervous about making sure it was all right and the timing was right and everything else. And like you said, and we've been seeing, and it's still growing. It's led to a lot of great things for her and for all of us, So, sometimes there's a little element of, like, we all just got to leap a little sometimes, and it'll work itself out. And yeah, so who knows, man? You guys may be more ready than you think you are. Closer to it.
That's true. I see. I'm more of I guess the Aaron in me and Mike's partnership, where I'm like, let's just do it. And he's very reserved, and let's make sure we do it. So we counterbalance each other with that.
That's good. That's good, and I think that's important to have, because there are times where obviously my perspective helps. You know what I mean, as well, with her, and we balance each other out. But I definitely would be lying if I didn't acknowledge that. I'm more than thankful, that her aggressive pursuit, has won out more times than my reserved nature, because it's led to a lot of great things.
Yeah, and it's great. Like I said, everything I'm seeing is. By the way, I can't tell you how much I smiled when I was looking. I think I was on demand looking for probably The Flash or something, and the preview for Ride Along 2 came on, and it was your scene, and I'm like,
how wild is that?
Like that, it's weird to say, like, I fucking know that dude to a degree. Like, like know him more than he knows me, because I listen to him week in and week out, and like follow him on Twitter. It's like that. It was so cool to like see that and be like, I know that dude. Like I've talked to that dude, a little bit, and now I can say a lot. And like, it was so cool seeing the trailer.
Well, thank you, man. It's funny. Like, we don't have cable, so I don't ever see any commercials. I don't see any of this stuff. I once or twice have caught something online where it's played, or someone's like, oh, check this out. But that whole experience, man, first of all, it was my first studio film. And so, obviously, like, we talk about the work, right? Like, all the work that's gone in, I'm like, finally, I'm ready. I'm like, you have no idea how ready I am, and I'm going to take this scene. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so excited to do this. And then find out I'm working with Kevin, who is so hot right now, and obviously Ice Cube, a legend, Olivia Munn. I mean, and then Ken Jeong's in the scene as well, off screen. But so the filming it was incredible. I had so much fun. Then realizing that, when you shoot a movie, there's so much stuff that gets cut. But then I realized that movie was filmed and finished like a good 6 months before I filmed, and I realized that those were pickups, and that means that they were already testing it with audiences. So I guess they figured they needed more whatever, I guess comedic moments, and we went and shot that. So I'm like, oh man, I have a good chance of actually making the movie. And then thinking about it, I'm like, man, this is actually kind of a cool like trailer type scene, But of course, not knowing anything. Fast forward, I get busy with work, and I remember I'm helping somebody move. I'm in a U-Haul truck, sweating my nuts off one day, and I get a text from somebody, and they're like, dude, you're in the Ride Along trailer. And I'm like, what? And I go, and then, my phone's blowing up because someone posted on my Facebook, and then they're sharing it. And I'm like, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, I cannot believe this. Like, my first studio film, and I'm in like the first trailer. And then I kept, there were only like 2 or 3 different spots that a bit from my scene wasn't in. Then fast forward, the movies, it's, they're doing their promotion. They're doing a big tour and promotion for it, around November, December. And everybody starts calling me again. They're like, dude, you were on Ellen. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm on Ellen? They're like, Kevin Hart was on Ellen. And, they cut to like, oh, let's take a look at this scene. And it's your scene, like almost the whole scene. Oh, that's cool. And it was playing everywhere, Kevin. Like, anywhere those people were doing promotion, like Ice Cube was on, whatever TV show, like they were playing that. Good Morning America, I mean, it was everywhere. They were literally using our scene. So obviously, to know at that point that was happening, and I'm like, well, I think I'm going to be in the movie at this point. I mean, even though that's not guaranteed, because we've all seen that, but I'm like, if they're showing it this much, like, and then sure enough, it made it, and like that this whole thing has been crazy. I mean, it's funny today we're talking because, technically the movie has come out today.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So I went and picked it up, and I was curious if they had more in like the deleted scenes or gags, like all the stuff, and there wasn't. But there was a cool moment where I fast forwarded to our scene, and the commentary was on, and the director was saying how much he really enjoyed the scene and how well it turned out. So I don't know, it's been really wild, and I'll get messages every so often, like what you just said. People are like, oh my God, I just saw you on this, and it's kind of come again now because they're promoting the DVD release. So now everybody's seeing it again. So I'm excited. And like I said, man, sitting in that theater, watching that logo pop up, I was anxious, but it was a weird moment because I'm like, but I'm in this one, and it was cool, and it's like, obviously not at the capacity that I one day, know I'll be at with it, but, it's still a very cool moment. And I think the beginning for a lot of that.
Yeah, that's, I have to imagine that's gotta be one of the coolest moments, if not the coolest moment.
Yeah, it was really special, especially seeing it with everybody. I saw it a couple times, and each time it was with a big group. One was in Jersey, and then one was out here, and then another one out here, and being surrounded by people. Like I said, I mean, that's one of the biggest rewards I get from it is how everybody else can experience, you know what I mean, and participate. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's happy for you for what you're doing, for what Aaron's doing, for what all Team West Coast. I kind of lump you all in one little thing there. But what everyone was doing out there, it's I do. Every time I see something good, every time I see the team book it hashtag, I know something good happened, and I smile.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, man. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So make sure you check out Ace on all his social medias at NotoriAce. Check out It Spoof for his Once Upon a Time spoof stuff. Once Upon a Time spoof.com. Make sure you check that out. It has links to all the other things that he talks about for buying tickets and buying the movie. It's also going to get an overhaul at some point when I actually sit down and do it. And for this show, make sure you check us out on Twitter at That Entertains. Awesomepodcast.com is the site. You can find me on Twitter at HHWST. So for Everything is Awesome, I'm Kev, and you've been listening to us on awesomepodcast.com. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Everything is Awesome is produced by Crude Humor Studios. For more information about the podcast, please visit us online at awesomepodcast.com. Or if you're interested in advertising on the show, please email us at advertising@crudehumorstudios.com. Stream and download all episodes on iTunes. While you're there, please consider leaving a 5-star review. If you're a fan of the show, please let us know by following us on Twitter and Instagram at That Entertains.